Greeting and salutations. I am Lloyd, a producer at LCD Productions, and I have come to share this new series of visual audiobooks with you, the listener, the supporter, the viewer. Together we will go on a journey like never before, fly to new heights with Project Aerospace, explore new land and cityscapes with photations, even change the dimension of time through the power of time-lapse photography from live to tape. We'll even travel beyond the mind's eye into worlds captured and generated through animation from Thumbs United daily animation series. As we together go on these journeys filled with photography and theater of the mind, I hope you remember the core belief that we hold, that anyone can become the master of art, meaning that it is not some born skill what makes someone good at being creative. It is a desire to practice and spend time being creative that creates the master. I hope that these films, photography, and stories inspire you to set some time aside and practice some creativity. I believe if we all spend more time creating and being constructive, the world would be a better place, a more friendlier and fulfilling place. Thank you for coming. Let's begin this journey. This is live to tape in partnership with Project Aerospace to create the visual audiobook of the Girl Aviators and the Phantom Airship. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. What happened on the island? Look, cried Peggy suddenly. Isn't that a small island below there? Maybe we can make that. I'll try to, was the answer, as Roy gripped the steering wheel more firmly. At the same instant, the motor with a grasp and sputter gave out altogether, but Roy knew how to volplane, that is, to reach the earth by swinging the airplane in circles, so that her stability maintained even with the power cut off. He began to execute this maneuver now. The island which Peggy had indicated was a small plot of land some 5 miles off the shore. It was sandy and barren, looking on one side, though at the further end from there, some grew trees, some scrubby-looking bushes. If he could only keep the plane from sagging down into the sea, Roy was confident that he could land the plane in safety. But it was still some distance off, and the airplane was still dropping with much greater rapidity than seemed comfortable. Both Roy and his sister were expert swimmers, and the boy knew that Jeff was at home in the water. But all at the same time, if they struck the surface of the sea, there was a chance that they might become entangled in the airplane and drowned before they even had the opportunity to save themselves. So it was with a keen sense of apprehension that the boy exercised all the aircraft with which he was master in bringing his sky cruiser downward. Oh, cried Peggy suddenly as the golden butterfly gave a sickening downward drop, like a stone plunging into vacancy. But the empty air pocket which the craft had struck was a small one, and the next instant the atmosphere caught the broad wings and buoyancy of the airplane up from what seemed to be destined to be a disastrous fall. The drop had, however, had one good effect. It had thrown the airplane almost on end, and in that manner drained a few less driblets of gasoline from the depleted tank into the feed pipes. It was only a little fuel, but it was enough to cause the engine to resume operation for a couple of minutes. Taking advantage of this lucky accident, Roy drove forward, and as the propeller came once more to a standstill, the golden butterfly sank down into a bed of sand which made her almost at once stationary. Well, we are aerial Robinson Crusoes, exclaimed Peggy, as having clambered out of the chassis, she stood surveying the little island which had so fortunately landed upon. Yes, if we don't get some gasoline pretty quick, we'll be Crusoes in the mighty uncomfortable sense, commented Roy, moodily gazing about the surrounding sea, smooth as a sheet of glass, without the sign of a boat upon it. Far off the horizon there hung a three-masted schooner, all her sails set, and the flat calm, but she was too far off to aid them, even had she been able to. Tell you what we'll do, let's explore this island, said Jeff Strokes suddenly. Of course, cried Peggy, clapping her hands. That's what everyone does in a storybook. when they are stranded on a deserted island. And right after that, they always find just what they want, even down to a silver-mounted manicure set. "I'd like to see a tin-mounted can of gasoline," grunted Roy. Nevertheless, after seeing to the engine of the airplane, he was willing enough to set out with the others to explore the little spot of land in the sound. It was so small that it did not take them long to reach the summit of the low peak in which it rose the center. "Oh, this little hut," cried Peggy suddenly. Sure enough, below them, a half-overgrown tall weeds with scrub growth in a half-ruined hut. It was doubtless the relic of some fishermen who had once used the island as headquarters, but it had apparently long lapsed into disuse. Hardly had they spied it before Roy made another discovery. Drawn up in a miniature cove not far from his hut was the trim and trig white motorboat, seemingly from her long, narrow shape and powerful engine capable of great speed. Here was a discovery. A motorboat meant gasoline and companionship. With a soft cry of joy, Peggy was dashing forward toward the hut, from which they could now hear proceeding hum of human voices, when Roy suddenly checked her. From the doorway there had suddenly issued the figure of Morgan, the Bancroft's butler, and he gazed about him with a look of half-alarmed suspicion on his flabby face. The young aviator instinctively crouched behind a screen of green brush. They felt a sudden aroused premonition that everything was not as it should be. "It's nothing," said Morgan, addressing someone within the hut after he gazed about a little more without seeing anything to further alarm his suspicions. "All right, if that's the case, come back in," came another voice from inside the hut. Gills recognized the astonished Piggy, but another and a greater surprise was yet in store for them when they heard another voice strike into conversation. There was no mistaking the tone for any other than Fanning Harding. "You chaps are nervous as kittens," he was saying. "Who on earth would come to this island? We are as private here as we were in the South Sea. So now, go ahead, Morgan, with what you were saying." "Well, what I was saying is this," spoke up the English butler. "A fair division and no favoritism. You say you want a third. You ain't entitled to it. It's only by accident that you found out our secret, and I think you ought to be content with what you can get." "Very well," was the rejoinder, "but as you fellows know, I've got you in my power. You daren't make a move without consulting me. If you try any monkey tricks, I'll crush you so quick you won't know what struck you. The police are still carrying on their investigation, but their voices sank so low that the eager young listeners could hear no more, but their eyes shone as they exchanged glances. Somehow, both Peggy and Roy felt that the conversation had related to the mysterious vanishing of the jewels. This at least appeared clear from Fanning Harding's reference to the police. "We better get back to the other side of the island before they come out and see us," counseled Peggy. "If they were to find us out we had been spying on them, they might get frightened and spirit the jewels away from whenever they have concealed them. For I am just as sure now that they have all three mixed up in it as I am that." "We have no gasoline," put in Roy. "But you have no proof and nothing to go upon," objected Jeff Strokes, who was, just like most folks around Sandy Bay, familiar with the details of the strange occurrence. "That's just the trouble," said Peggy, "and it is just as impossible to go ahead in the case as it is for us to fly without fuel." "Peg," cried Roy suddenly, "look at that. That was 10-gallon cans of gasoline standing on the beach by the side of the motorboat, evidently to drag her bow up on the beach. They had lightened the craft so as to make the task easier, for several ropes and water jars and other bits of marine tackle lay about." "If we could only get it," sighed Peggy. "Yes, if," was the rejoinder from Roy, "but we can't steal it, and as you say, it might spoil everything if Fanning Harding thought that we had overheard any of his talk." "Look out," warned Jeff Strokes in a whisper in the next instant. The warning did not come a bit too soon. The door of the hut opened, and the party which had been in conference inside emerged. They made straight for the motorboat, which Jeff Strokes had in the meantime recognized as one that was for hire at Sandy Bay. Come on, boys, we've got to get back, urged Fanny, moving quickly and preparing to shove off the craft. Wait till I check some of this truck in, grumbled Gills. He stopped rapidly and threw the ropes and other gear scattered about. Then, as Fanny and Harding and the flabby-faced butler shoved off the craft, he made a hasty scramble for the boat, leaping in as she floated free of the beach. "Hoy soy!" shouted Morgan. "You forgot the bloomin' gasoline." "Better put back and get it," growled Gills. "If you fellows had helped me a bit instead of giving advice, it wouldn't have been forgotten." "Oh, we can't bother with it now," struck in Fanny impatiently. "We've plenty in the tank to take us back. I'm not going to delay any longer." He spun over the flywheel, and as he spoke, the motorboat came to a cut rapidly through the water, headed for Sandy Bay. As soon as it had gone a safe distance, the three stranded young adventurers joined hands and executed a wild war dance of joy. By means of almost miraculous, they had fallen across the very thing they needed. "It's just like the storybooks," cried Peggy delightedly. They raced down toward the coveted clan and was half full of precious fuel, enough to get them ashore at any rate. Before returning to the stranded airplane, they examined the hut but found nothing in it but a few broken down bits of furniture. "Queer," commented Jeff. "I half expected to find something." "Not likely," laughed Roy. "They're too foxy for that." "What do you suppose they came to the island for?" asked Peggy. "To get a quiet place to talk where they would not be observed by anyone who knew them, I guess," rejoined her brother. "Oh, if I only knew we could solve the mystery. It's tantalizing to be so close to it, and yet with so many tangled ends left raveled." "Be patient," advised Peggy. "It will all come out in time. And now I am famished for lunch, as the golden butterfly is, so let's fill up the tank and then head for home." "Second the motion," laughed Jeff Strokes. Half an hour later, the golden butterfly once more rose without incident or mishap, winged her on the way back to Rocky Point. Next chapter is Chapter 13, Jukes Jade Appears. Thank you for experiencing this journey we have created here at LCD Productions. For more information on how to support these films and projects, visit photations.com/support. Fine art photography prints from journeys around the world can be purchased from photationstore.com, and digital downloads of our photography and visual audiobooks is available for personal use. Commercial use is available at a different rate. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you here again.